On today's episode of Survival Dispatch News, we're talking the top 5 strategies and tips for urban survival with Tony Blauer.
This Survival Dispatch video is brought to you by Nutrient Survival. Nourish your body, power your mind.
Tony, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris.
So, urban survival, where do you want to start?
Well, one of the things that I've been saying for decades to people when I try to get them to come to our courses, I say, you can't get in a fight by yourself. So you should bring a training partner. And but it made me think of that in relationship to your question, because you're not going to get attacked by yourself. In other words, you need to be on the X. You need to be in a dangerous place near dangerous people for an attack to happen.
Okay.
And of course, shit is moving to nice areas. It used to be like, don't go down that street or don't go to that part of town. But in reality, that's the safest thing you could do, is just know where you shouldn't go. And, and just think of, when you go to like the ocean and you'll see a sign that says, warning, do not go into the surf here, or do not do, you gotta see those things in the urban jungle as, I shouldn't go down the street. I shouldn't be in this part of town. One of my team, he's active duty police officer. I asked him, hey man, like, what's your number one tip to people in your city? He said, like, bad shit happens after midnight. He's talking about like the time, but it's also time and place.
Time and place, yeah.
Yeah. So
the best way to, get off the X is don't step on it in the first place.
Right. But you got to know where the X is.
Right.
So I remember years ago, many years ago, decades ago, going for a walk in Boston. I was looking for Chinatown. I was trying to get some Bruce Lee magazines, and literally it's like 30, 40 years ago. And I heard there was this one shop in Chinatown, and I walked from my hotel to Chinatown through the area called, I think they call it the Combat Zone.
Wow.
There's a place there that they actually named it something like that. I might be screwing up the name. It was like, and I went, I walked here. It was like several miles here. And when people found out I walked there, they were like, are you crazy? And I said, yeah, it was a little creepy at parts, but I was like very dialed in and very, I'm ready to run. I'm ready to fight. So I was situationally aware, but you noticed, okay, I'm walking and then the street changes. It's almost like a movie where the color changes, the energy changes, the looks you get change. It was, I was young and dumb and didn't ask anybody, and things have gotten so different. But it was interesting. I was in Texas a few years ago doing something with Dom Rosso in the NRA. Okay. And we're there filming, and I'm at this nice hotel, and I said, look, I need a steak. Where can I go? They mentioned a place, and I grabbed my phone, put it in his walking distance, like a mile and a half. I'm going to go get some steps after the flight. And I'm walking like this down the street. I'm following my thing, walking here. And then about a half a mile in, because it's the walking, it's taking you like this. Yeah. Suddenly I'm on a street where there's like no lights, really dark. And I stopped and I went, you idiot. Like, why don't you just say, attack me? Right. Like, right. Because I look like, if you're walking with your phone, first of all, get your phone out of your hands. But if you're walking with your phone at night, it's like a beacon for predators.
Good choice of words.
Right? You're clearly lost, or you're texting. You have zero situational awareness.
It's kind of like Sesame Street. Which one doesn't belong?
Right.
That's you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I stopped for a second, kind of like extended my auditory senses, because I realized I was totally oblivious did I turn the right way? What am I? I said, oh my God, an opportunistic predator is looking. Here's a guy who's lost. He has no idea where he's going. He's alone. I immediately, I memorized the next, 2 sections of here, put my phone in my pocket, and stepped off the sidewalk onto this street facing the truck. I just wanted to be in more light area to run. I didn't want to be near bushes and houses. Okay. But it was weird. I was like, chuckled to myself going, yeah, you're overpaid for a situational awareness specialist because you're doing everything wrong right now, which is an interesting thing also to remember. We're only human. You've got to remember, you got to remember this stuff. One of your favorite things, we've talked about it on the show before, is, you know, if you're out driving, keep your vehicle well maintained and keep your gas tank full. But as guys, how many of us are regularly going, I think I can go further. I think this is, okay, I know it's below empty and the warning light came on, but I think I got another 20 miles in here.
Right.
And my wife, half a tank, no matter where she is, half a tank.
Smart.
She's filling it up again.
I mean, that then saves you from making an unplanned stop at somewhere that you really shouldn't be stopping at, somewhere you don't want to be.
Well, look how they connect, right? You find yourself, you forgot to check your fuel and you're driving somewhere and then you realize you're out of gas. Now, the urgency of running out of gas can interfere with your situational awareness because you've got a little bit of emotional, psychological panic, if you will. I got to get gas. I got to get gas. So you're not looking at things. If you think about this, if your tank was full, would you drive through this little town and stop and get gas there? You'd go, absolutely not. Well, now when there's no other distraction, your situational awareness is like fully lucid. It's actually going, wow, this looks kind of creepy.
Yeah. I mean, Jacksonville, great example. It'd be crazy to stop in downtown Jacksonville for fuel. So why run your gas tank down, forcing you to stop somewhere like that?
Yeah,
that's good advice. I years ago, a friend of mine, I won't tell the whole backstory because it's kind of long, but he basically said that he was going to become a millionaire and retire at a young age because he was going to make a GPS system that had a ghetto avoidance mode, so that whatever destination you punched in your GPS didn't take you through the bad part of town. And it was a joke, but it's kind of good advice, you know, because GPSs will drive you off a cliff if you let them.
Oh yeah, they're horrible. And I've gotten twice. I had a meeting in downtown LA, and I don't even remember the name of the street, but there's a couple of streets in downtown LA that are just totally overrun with just homeless.
Right.
And it's literally a scene from The Walking Dead. It's frightening. And I'm following my GPS and it takes me down the street. And, you know, I teach a program on how to manage fear. I was scared shitless on and this is like probably about 2 miles long, lots of lights. All I did was 40 miles an hour through every stop sign, through every light, just going, holy shit, and watching, not so fast that I couldn't react to something.
Right.
But I was trying to be at a speed where people go like, let's not surround that car. It's going too fast. I'm definitely going to get hit. But also where I could have, if a kid ran out or a dog ran out, I could have done something. But honestly, Chris, like I turned down the street here and I'm coming and it's a one-way street. And all of a sudden it was like, holy shit, just hundreds and hundreds of tents and boxes and people and milling about, and
Skid Row.
It was but this is like all of that GPS. And if you look at all these tips, the urban survival tips, they're all connected. You know, had my car malfunction because I didn't keep it running smooth, or I ran out of gas right there, problem. Had I known where the X was, had I not trusted just the GPS for fastest route, you know, I wouldn't have been there. So it's a combination. They're all kind of interlaced.
Yeah, we were riding our motorcycles back from Key West about 20 years ago, and somehow ended up on the north side of Miami and Riviera as the sun was going down. And so now you're going from a very affluent neighborhood into the worst of the worst. And so all the drug dealers and gangs were coming out of the woodwork because the sun's fixing to go down. And a friend of mine, Bill, as we were going through it, we stopped at a light for a second. He looked at me, I looked at him, and we said, we're not stopping for any more lights. So we slowly proceeded through all the four-way stops and red lights because we knew if we had stayed there, we were absolutely on the X.
Yeah. Trust and this is one of the things I tell everybody, 3 I's: instincts, intuition, intelligence. Every victim of violence who lived to tell the tale said they had a bad feeling before the attack. And so your instincts are more hardwired survival. Your intuition is more this kind of, I know this to be true, I just don't know why. So that's how I describe it. It's you know something is true, but you don't have the evidence yet. And that's why if I ask anybody around the world, you know, have you ever been betrayed in a business deal? Yeah. Have you ever been betrayed in a relationship? Yeah. What did you say after the emotional fall, you know, the dust settled from that? What did you say to yourself? Did you say anything like, I knew that was going to happen? And 100% of people I ask go, you know what? Like, I knew that person was going to screw me in the deal. I knew we weren't going to last. I knew, and from a psychoanalysis point of view, I say, then why'd you let it happen? Because we don't listen to our intuition. We need to learn to trust our intuition. And this is like in our self-defense program, we call this the choose safety model.
Okay.
What is the safest thing you could do right now? Don't confuse choosing safety with playing it safe. That's a boring way to live. So, you know, on a bike, like playing it safe is, I'm not going to ride a motorcycle. So you wouldn't have been on the trip.
Okay.
Choosing safety is, my intuition says we should not be slowing down right now. This time, this place, let's just drive through lights. And if we get pulled over, maybe we get a ticket, maybe we don't. The cop will go, what are you doing here? You should not be driving this time, right? So that's the 3 I's: instincts, intuition. And if you blend instincts and intuition, you will improve your critical thinking. But the hard thing is, like, we've been taught as a society to outsource our safety. We've been taught.
That's an interesting concept.
Yeah. And it's a line I got to give credit to Jack Donovan. He was interviewing me, and if you've never read his treatise, he's a great writer. He wrote, it's a treatise, it's bigger than an article. It's called Violence is Golden. Read it, Violence is Golden by Jack Donovan. And so he had me on his show, and I was telling him, you know, not too long ago, you knew which mushrooms got you high and which mushrooms would kill you. Not too long ago, you hunted for food. Not too long ago, you know, if you went into town to sell the pelts and you left your wife and kids at home, they all knew how to use a gun in case someone came on. And now I didn't use this terminology. I said, now our safety is like 911. Our safety is, what should I do here? Siri, is it safe to give this to my kid, right? We don't understand.
Right.
And he goes, you're saying, and it was his line, I was giving credit. He said, you're telling people not to outsource their safety. And I've always repeated it because it's so short. Don't outsource your safety.
Yeah.
And it ties into everything Survival Dispatch is about.
Yeah, that's great. I will steal it, and we'll quote.
Well, you're actually not stealing it. You're passing it on. You're sharing it. You're paying it forward.
I'll steal it.
Okay, well, okay.
But I'll give you and Jack full credit for it.
It's an interesting thing. You know, I always make a joke. It's not a joke, but you're the first responder in your confrontation.
Right.
If you're calling the police who are called first responders, literally, technically, they're the second responder because you were there first. That's why it happened.
And the average national response team, or time, is 12 minutes.
Yeah.
That's an eternity.
A lot can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're probably DRT, dead right there.
Yeah. Or you're doing stuff. And this is, you know, one of the most important things is this 3I model and the choose safety principle. The choose safety principle, once again, is what is the safest thing I could do right now? And you would only invoke that if you had some sort of energetic pre-contact. And I'm not being woo-woo here. It's like every victim of violence who lived to tell the tale said they had a bad feeling. So that means the moment you got a bad feeling about something, and this is interesting, medical, financial, relationship, violence, you got a bad feeling about something, don't wait 6 months, don't wait 6 minutes, don't wait 6 years. We're talking self-defense here, but there are pre-contact cues before someone throws a punch, someone pulls out a gun. And this is, I think, one of the accidental flaws of conventional self-defense thinking is it's always taught, how do you get out of a headlock? How do you do a gun disarm? And I lovingly and jokingly refer to this as the Star Trek model of practicing self-defense, where we go, let's say a guy has a gun, and in the scenario, you just beam him down. Nobody asks, how did I get there?
Right.
Where am I? How did he get here? Was he just walking around with a gun point? And so all of these elements build your scenario, but they build what we refer to as the timeline of violence, the what happened before I had to do a gun disarm. So part of that is exactly what we're talking about now. If you were situationally aware, you were thinking about where you were going, you went, okay, car's working, gas is full, I'm not going to be on my phone if I'm walking or driving. I know, I'm going here. This is an area I do not want to stop. And I do that research. To me, it's no different than if you're allergic to peanuts and you go into a restaurant and you go, I'm allergic to peanuts. Like, is there any in the sauce or the food here?
Right.
So, I mean, it's the same thing. It's just being proactive about your safety.
Yeah. So first and foremost, identify where the X is and don't get on the X. So
Right.
You're worried about having to get off the X, but then you kind of flow right into the next point. And as you mentioned, they're all interconnected, which is situational awareness. So let's discuss next how people can improve their situational awareness. So Tony, Jason Sawyer did a recent video on urban survival, and he mentioned situational awareness, keeping your head on a swivel. But there were some comments that asked for more information on that, like how do you have a high level of situational awareness? So that's the question.
It's a good question. I'm just trying to think of the best way to segue into this. And I probably should just share the information, but I want to point out that there's a lot of experts who talk about head on a swivel, left to bang, get off the X, but then there's no practical, tactical tip on okay, what do you do? And it's one thing if you were like, you went through the combat hunter program, you're a Marine, and you're learning to think in that environment, your area of operation, and you're learning all about the population there, how they set things up, what to look for, et cetera, et cetera. The average person doesn't have that experience. They're not going to get that training. And it's not to say that the books aren't worth reading and the information's not good, but at the end of the day, I want something simple. And I liken it to, like the two sides of the martial arts systems that I practice and teach. I have one that's for fanatics. So I work out and think about self-defense every day. It's my calling.
Okay.
But then I've got a lot of people who go, look, I don't want to grapple with anyone. I don't want to get kicked in the head. I want to go to work. I want to come home. I want to see my family. I want to take my dog for a walk. I don't want to worry about shit. Do you have a program for me? So it was like, how do you teach simple self-defense? How can I make you safer in a day? We joke offline, and I'll edit some of the language, but like self-defense for people who aren't in shape and don't want to train.
Right.
And there's actually a way to do that. And in developing that program, I came up with these simple tips for improving your self-awareness. Number one, and it's weird, number one tip is walk around one day or for a couple of days, little notepad, digital or written, whatever works for you, and sit and people watch. You do it already, but people watch with the mind of whose purse can I steal? Whose kid could I go talk to? Whose dog could I take? Whose phone? Like, I remember, we almost blew up the internet. Our server crashed. I was meeting my wife at a coffee shop, and she's outside the coffee shop waiting for me. She's working on some papers. She's got her earphones in. Her phone's on the table. She's working a document. Her purse is hanging off the back of her chair. The zipper is open. And she's down here working on some documents we had just moved. And sitting beside her, so as I'm walking up, I see couple, and then there's an individual who we would describe as a foreigner sitting alone on a bench about 3 feet behind her. And he's just sitting there like with his hands on his arms on his legs like this. And as I walk up, I snap this picture and I write this article. She doesn't even know I take the picture.
Yeah.
And I walk up to her and I go, she takes him out. She goes, oh, hi, dear. Here's your coffee. I go, hey, zip up your purse. It's hanging off the back of your chair. Anyone could walk by and grab that. And your phone's on the table. Someone could easily walk by, distract you here. There's so many scams out there. And I said, did you notice the guy sitting beside you? behind you, like 3 feet away. And she's like, looks around, and you know, I don't know if he was gone at that point, I don't remember. But I ended up writing this whole article going like, if he was a human trafficker, hey, here's a hot blonde with zero situational awareness. She's here. We'll do our ruse over here and do that. Or grabbing a purse, pick me up here, whatever. She was making every single mistake possible in one. So the situational awareness part is this. If I were there and I didn't know her, I'd be going, I could kidnap her, I could steal her purse, I could take her phone, I could get all this personal information about her, and no one else noticed. So again, I give you some substance and background around why you do this. And this is horrible to think this way. What dog could you steal? What home could you walk into? What car could you take? You look at, you know, videos of robberies at gas stations. You know, people on their phone, door open,
Right.
purse on seat, key, you know, keys in there. And if you're an opportunistic piece of shit, this is like spoon feeding them. Do that for a couple of days. It'll make you uncomfortable. Make your notes and then look at it. And what you're going to see is commonalities. What that immediately does is it starts to stimulate what's called the RAS, your reticular activating system in your body. Think about this to understand reticular activating system. And it's a unique way to think about this. Let's say you decide you're going to buy a new car. You look at your budget, you look at the cars you like, and then you say, I'm going to get this car. That day, and this has happened to people watching this, it's probably happened to you. That day that you decided you needed to move and get a new house or apartment, that day you noticed houses for sale. That day when you said, I'm going to get a new car, I want this blue XYZ, you started noticing them on the road. They were there yesterday. That home for rent or for sale, that car, they were there yesterday. But until you said to yourself, I'm interested in this, it's therefore important to me. So if we did that for our personal safety, suddenly you start to notice this is important to me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So first thing that comes to mind is years ago I bought a Jeep, and after I bought the Jeep, I was like, "Holy crap! There's a lot of Jeeps on the road here in Central Florida," which I'd never noticed that before.
Right. Yeah. So that's how I integrate the neuroscience into the training. There's a part 2 to this, which is even better than part 1. Part 1 is free and it's easy. If you don't do it, that's on you. Okay. Right. And so how does that work? Your situational awareness, like the Jeep thing, like you got it, and then you went, should I have gotten the Jeep? Like I just noticed 8 of them today.
Right.
So when you start to notice what makes people vulnerable or potential targets, there's a greater chance that you're going to go, just got at the gas station, I'm on my phone, my door's open, my car's here, my purse is here. There's a better chance that something in your intuition is going to say, hey, idiot, like you've been studying this stuff, don't do that. The second part of this, now that you've studied other people, is you study yourself. A little bit harder, but more impactful. The question you ask yourself is, if I were going to attack me, property, body, life, those are the only 3 things bad guys want. Okay. Property, body, and life. If I were going to attack me, so if you did this, it's like, Chris, you're studying your routine. If I were going to mug me, hold me up, kidnap me, murder me, when would it happen? And again, creepy, weird, because you're like, right. You're trying to look at yourself from here. I remember like a story that I tell at a lot of our seminars. I used to live in Montreal, Canada, and there was a rape at the Montreal Gazette in the parking lot one night. And so Montreal Gazette is our big main newspaper. Okay. And I had run ads for self-defense there. Ironically, the newspaper called me because one of their staff was raped after work one night, and they worked 24 hours. Yeah. So they called me, and it's like, just as a businessman, I said, how'd you hear about me? They go, well, you ran an ad with us last week, so we saw your self-defense ad. So I ended up doing something, but because of the shifts, I ended up like finishing at 11 o'clock at night doing different teams. Okay. And I was exhausted from like doing like 6 hours of seminars in a row. It was winter time, freezing cold, but the parking lot that I parked at, which was packed during the day, had 3 cars in it at night, and they had the lighting. Do you remember the cover of The Exorcist, the movie The Exorcist?
Yeah.
It was like that creepy one,
Yeah.
spotlight. Like, so that was the parking lot at night. And that's why people get attacked there, is because, you know, like there was no security lights. There was no security. So I walk out, I'm tired. I got my portable whiteboard, my LCD giant back then, right? This is like decades ago, carrying my shit like this. I get to my car, key in the car, open up. I had a small car, my whiteboard, I'm jiggling in here. And as I'm in the car, I pause and I go, you moron. Like, you didn't even scan the parking lot. You didn't even check. This is where a violent attack happened last week. And now your head is inside of a trunk and you're stuck wiggling in this portable wipe. And I paused, knowing, because there was snow and ice, my auditory sense would pick up anyone walking or moving. I paused for a second, held my breath, didn't hear any footsteps, came out of the car quickly, because what I just visualized is someone just running up, slamming the trunk a couple of times, throwing me in the trunk. Yeah. The keys are still in the thing, stealing the car with me in the back. This is what flashed in my head. But what it was making every mistake. And I always talk about this. And I think, you know, people ask me, what's it like to have no fear? And I go, no, it's no fear. It's not no fear. I have fear every day, but I manage my fear. It's not like debilitating fear. It's like, I wonder if my flight's going to be on time. That's fear. Okay. I wonder if you're going to be cool. That's fear, right? Like, you know, I get up out of bed. I'm 63. I got tons of injuries. How's my back feel? That's fear. So it's not like that type of fear. It's how do you change what your mind is thinking? Because, and this isn't about manifestation and anything spiritual or metaphysical. This is just that psychology of, why would I entertain negative thoughts instead of positive thoughts if I could change how I think? And I share this because in the moment when I was in the back of my car, I was entertaining negative thoughts. While you're entertaining negative thoughts, you cannot possibly defend yourself because you haven't shifted from prey to predator. So when you catch yourself visualizing something negative, you want to convert that, like just clearing a jam. It's in the same way a stovepipe is a jam on your firearm. Your fear loop is a metaphoric jam in your mind. Okay. So I clear the fear by, I'm visualizing something negative. I extend my special forces. Your special forces in this metaphor are your ears, your eyes, your sense of touch. Okay, no sound, clear, out, move, scan. There's nobody here. Okay, quickly finish packing up, get the hell out of there. This was the scene of a crime last week. What are you hanging out here? And then just to wrap up the story, because there's a lot to unpack there, you know, I called them the next day. I go, guys, the reason people get attacked after hours is because you have no lights. Yeah. Like at least make it a little bit harder. But anyways, I went down a rabbit hole there to explain. Second most important tip is, when would you attack you? Do you have a routine? Do you have a ritual? Are you closing up shop at a certain time and you've gotten a little complacent with, you stuff the money from the day in the store, you put it in your bag and you walk out? I mean, people notice that stuff. They watch for it. Are you always at the same gas station? Does that gas station suck? Right? There's things. Are you always at this ATM? People can see your routine. If you kind of like amplify your situational awareness when you're in those rituals, you make it a little bit harder. So those are two amazing ones.
Yeah, I mean, as you're saying this, the first thing that popped into my mind is when I was younger, I used to bounce as a side gig and learned pretty quick. And we got in a lot of fights. It was a rock and roll bar. It was pretty rough.
Was it called Roadhouse?
No, it was not. It was called the Doctor's Hotel.
Okay, just sounds close enough.
But I learned pretty quickly that to stand with my back to a wall where I had a purview of the entire area. Like the band room alone held 500 people. If we didn't break the law, there were times we had 600 people in that room. The fire marshal shut it down. It's a lot of people crammed into one area. So to this day, when we go eat somewhere, I try to get a table where my back is to the wall. I can see everything that's in front of me. I know where the primary exit is. I know where the fire exit is. all those sort of things. So, you know, I'm not scared to go out. I'm not scared to go have dinner. But if shit does happen, I want to make sure that I can see it early and that I know what my next move is going to be.
Absolutely.
So the next tip we're going to discuss is how to avoid looking like an easy target / victim, and how to not look like a high value target. So give us your advice, how-to tips on that.
Yeah, a great question, and it's an interesting thing, because when you're out, you want to enjoy yourself. Like if you worked your ass off and you know, let's assume you've got spiritual, emotional, psychological wealth, and now you got yourself a nice car, you got yourself a nice watch, or you just got some nice things. You're obviously a magnet to a predator looking for, you know, those assets. And I always remind people that bad guys only want one of three things: property, body, or life. Property, body, life is a short list, which makes it scary, but because it's short, it also makes it practical. Because you go out, like my daughter just went with her boyfriend to Mexico, and they just went down for 3 days. And I was like, you're not taking that suitcase, take a shitty suitcase, one that doesn't look like there might be nice things in it.
Okay.
And take that jewelry off. You don't need, once you get to the resort, you can carry in your carry-on, and you can put it back on, but don't travel with it.
Good advice.
Just simple things where, and I give a great example. Years ago, I was in New York City, and so my son's 32 now, and he was 4 years old in a stroller, and I had just done a big gig with a bodyguard and a family and their company, and I had moved to New York for 2 months, and I treated myself. I do this every few years if I really take the company next level. I bought myself a nice watch.
Okay.
Little gift. CEO is awarding this number one producer in the company. It was a company of one. I only worked for myself, so it was like easy thing.
Right.
Pat myself on the back, and I'm so excited. I bought this Rolex, and I'm out with. It's back in the day where there was no digital cameras, and I had a beautiful camera. I love taking pictures, and I was in a camera shop, stroller. My wife at the time was my girlfriend, and I said, "Hey, I need that particular film." There so I want to take some black and white shots in New York.
Okay.
That over there, and the guy says, "This one," and I went, "No, this one here." And as I reached forward, my Rolex slid on my wrist, and he says, "Nice watch," but he said it, Chris. There was something off with it. It wasn't like, "Oh my God, that's a nice watch." They didn't have anything nice. No, he wasn't admiring it. There was something off in it. And you all know there's so many scams out there. Is this guy getting on the phone going, "Hey, guy with a brand new Rolex with a kid in a stroller and his wife, how easy a target is that? Look, what am I running after them?
Right.
What am I going to do if somebody walks up to me and I got like my kid and my wife?" And immediately when he said it, my intuition said there was something wrong with that. My hand hadn't even come back. And I went, "This thing, I cannot believe how real it looks." I bought it up the street, like $50. I mean, it's actually the same weight as a real Rolex. Anyways, and I devalued the watch. And I know you love this principle. We talked about it a lot. So the devalue principle is huge for the gray man principle. It's how do I blend in? It's part of it. And how do I devalue myself? And when you think about that, it's like property, body, life. What are opportunistic or targeted bad guys looking for? And how do you devalue yourself? Sometimes in the moment, like what I did in the moment was devalue the watch, making me not a target, because why would you mug somebody for a fake Rolex?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting concept. I just did the forward for a friend of mine's book. He's a retired air marshal, and it's a book called, it's so cute with the kid on there.
Right on.
I don't know if you guys can see that. I don't know if we want to zoom in there. But Gary, little shout out. He's got a series of books, and it's all about situational awareness. And so this one's called Spotting Danger for Travelers. And so everyone always, like the experts always say, don't look like a tourist. And in my forward, I go, "But can I swear on the show?"
Yeah.
Thank goodness. So I go, I didn't write it there, but I'm going, how could you not like look like a tourist when you are a fucking tourist? Like, there's no way that, like, if you go to France, you're not taking a picture of the Eiffel Tower. The locals aren't.
Right.
So I could wear a gray jacket with a gray hat, put like gray paint on. I'm really the gray man. And then I go, there's the Eiffel Tower. like, how do you not look, right?
Yeah.
So it's funny. A lot of experts have expert advice that isn't really functional or practical.
Okay.
It's almost like, and it's not to knock them because there's essence, but a lot of it came down from tradecraft, right? So it's like, well, of course, in tradecraft, this makes sense because that's all you do, blend in. But if I said to you, let's go to Paris, let's go to the Grand Canyon, go to the Grand Canyon, don't take a picture because you don't want anyone to know that you're a tourist. You'll never see a park ranger going, wow, this is beautiful, because
right.
he fucking works there and he's done his pictures. So it's funny. But
well, yes and no, but I got a question for you.
Yeah, please.
So, I mean, you've been in athletics for years, much like myself. So if you look like a hard target, you're big and you're muscular, a lot of times people will avoid engaging you because you're a hard target. On the flip side, there's people out there who have, I don't know, low self-esteem or something and figure that you're the perfect target because they can prove themselves to be the big man. What are your thoughts on the whole thing of looking imposing but not drawing undue attention? It's a thing. I got
a deeper spiritual answer. It's like, I have been threatened in my life. I've had death threats in my life. I had a couple of morally, ethically corrupt people steal one of my companies from me. They knew that, like, I'm one of the preeminent combatives. So, like, why would you fuck with a guy that could really inflict some pain on you?
Right.
Because they didn't care. It didn't matter who I was or what I did. One of the scariest private lessons I ever had was with a 7'4" bouncer.
Holy shit.
This is true. He calls me up years ago. He said, hey, and I've always, like, since I was first in Black Belt magazine, 1980, but I've been in like 100 different magazines over the years.
Right.
So I was in a lot of these magazines, and I was always talking about the connection between managing fear and managing movement, that the mind navigates the body, that you can learn, get your own black belts, fire, knife, gun. If you can't manage the fear in a sudden violent encounter, you're not going to be able to access any complex motor skills. You need to recalibrate the brain.
Okay.
So I get this call. So I would get a lot of calls going, hey, I hear you specialize in the psychology side. In fact, there was the president of the World Kickboxing Association had me work with one of his fighters before a championship fight, because the guy had just come off a loss. He had the flu. He was fighting on American television for the first time years ago. ESPN had just picked this up. And he said, this guy can't lose this fight. He's fighting a foreigner. It's our first American thing. He says, you're the Anthony Robbins of self-defense. Would you? I took that as a nice compliment.
How to 10x yourself.
Right. Personal power. But it's I took it as a compliment, and I'm a fan of a lot of what Robbins does.
On.
So it was interesting. So a lot of people weren't interested in less necessarily like startle flinch conversion or my scenarios. Everyone knows that this is the weak link. And even if they don't want to talk about it. But I digress. The 7'4" guy, but I don't know he's 7'4" on the phone call. Okay. It's like, hey, Tony Blauer, I just read a magazine. I'm a bouncer at this club downtown, Rough Club. And he says, I got a lot of people threaten me and get in my face. And if I get my head thinking, I get really reactive, not good in my job. Could I book a private? I said, yeah, sure. So we booked the time. I hear the doorbell, the door open to my school, and in walks this guy. Literally had to bend down to get in my room. And when he stands up, he's completely blocking the door, like I couldn't get out of the room. And I would sit at my desk and I look up, and he goes, I'm so-and-so, for the private. And I said, the first thing I said was, are you kidding me? People actually harass you?
Yep.
And he said, you wouldn't be amazed at how many guys get drunk or assholes and they look at me as huge. The flip side of that, I had a friend of mine who had a horrible weightlifting accident, pitched a snatch, lost control of it, threw it behind him. Someone had stacked other plates too close on the lifting table. The bar hit, bounced back, and the Olympic bar severed his spine.
Holy cow.
Paralyzed from the legs down. He brought me in, still very, I can do a muscle up with a wheelchair attached to him. Kevin Ogar, legend. But Kevin brought me in to teach our self-defense to his members. And he told me that he has a Glock under his wheelchair. He says, you wouldn't believe how much shit happens to me now that I'm in a wheelchair.
Right.
So I'm giving you like two insane dichotomies. 7'4", hey, help me control my fear, help me control my mind, because people are in my face. And you'd be thinking, well, I'm not starting with this guy. And then here's a guy in a wheelchair.
I trained beside Kevin Nash for years, 7 feet tall. And there was a guy came in the gym one night. It wasn't in a really good part of Daytona, but it was an old school gym. Mm-hmm. This guy, we'd seen him several times in the gym, but something wasn't right. He was probably messed up on drugs or whatever. And he threatened Kevin Nash. He was going to stab him. He was going to shoot him. He was going to beat the shit out of him. And I mean, he was 2 feet shorter than Kevin Nash, for crying out loud. But,
so my point, where I was going with all this is, and it just reminded me of something that I often say in the seminars about this. I go, have you heard that when you study martial arts that size doesn't matter? It's just like an urban legend, like size doesn't matter. And I go, well, size didn't matter, then there wouldn't be weight classes in boxing.
Exactly.
If size didn't matter, there wouldn't be weight classes in MMA. If size didn't matter, if size doesn't matter, how about you and I have a demolition derby and you drive a Prius and I'll drive like a Ford Raptor or
it's the other way around. You're from California, I'm from Florida.
Right. So, but here's the point is size does matter.
Yeah.
And this is probably the most important thing I could say about this. And hopefully I can connect all the dots. Size absolutely matters. But because size matters, size can't matter. What do I mean by that? If you're a 5'4", 120-pound woman, you can't be a 7'4" bouncer.
Yeah.
If you're a 7'4" bouncer and people pick on you because you're big, you can't be a 5'7" gray man. So the way I approach managing violence and your personal safety for your family, for yourself, is you just got to look in the mirror and go, what do I look like? Who am I? What do I need to know? If I did an assessment on my capabilities, like from survival dispatch point of view, you go, hey man, you need a generator, you need water, you need food, great. But at the end of the day, you need to be your own bodyguard. I wrote this the other night in a forum. Somebody asked me what I did. I said, I teach people who can't afford bodyguards how to be their own bodyguard.
Well said.
And what does that mean? What does that actually mean? It means like, if I was your bodyguard and we were in some weird place where I got a bad feeling about the restaurant and I saw the chefs doing this and doing that, I'd go, hey boss, they might have put something in your food. If one of us is going to die, let me taste it for you, right? Okay. Right? Like, why would you? I always laugh at this. You ever have family members that you know when the milk's going bad, hey, taste this. I think the milk's bad. It's like, hey, your face was enough. I don't need to taste it. Thank you. So I'm making a joke here, like we all practice self-defense. You don't run across the street without looking both ways. You manage your speed on a highway. You ask for like references. Usually, we all practice self-defense. We brush our teeth. That's a form of self-defense. We take showers. We try to eat good food. The only type of self-defense most people don't practice is actual self-defense for themselves. And a lot of it is just recognizing, this is like the biggest and most important thing is what I said just before. We outsource our safety by thinking our jiu-jitsu, our Krav Maga, our Taekwondo, our MMA is going to do it for us.
Or your pistol.
Or your pistol. Yeah. Good point. I just did a video the other day about this where, you know, anytime there's an active shooter event, there's 1,000 comments. That's why I carry. That's why I carry. That's why I carry. And I go, this is what your flat range practice, these are the two things that your flat range practice and sudden violence have in common. Number one, and number two, I posted these two emojis, right? Like they have nothing. And if we're here talking, if someone came in the room and opened fire at us, this is what we both do. And I don't care that you're armed and you got 9 guns on you and 14 knives. If a bullet whipped by your head and my head hit the wall and the sound of the gunfire, we would both be doing this. Holy shit. Yeah. Startle flinch would happen. Yeah. You need to, and it's not just, oh, I'd flinch and then draw. It would be, I need to flinch and my brain has to go, what the fuck is happening, even though I know what's happening. You have an amygdala hijack. The limbic system's freaking out. Your survival system's deploying primal gross motor movement that's overriding immediate access to where you're carrying. And you need to recalibrate that. Now, there's a way, when you understand that, there's a way to learn that and a way to train that and a way to make that happen faster. So between stimulus response is a gap time called refractory delay. Okay. Can you speed that up? Well, we can. That's what we've been doing for 30 years. It's converting the startle response. But
weaponize the flinch.
Weaponize the flinch. But probably the biggest message here, because we're down a bunch of rabbit holes, is, and I love it, is size doesn't matter. Well, yes, it does. And if size does matter, and you're big or small or in a wheelchair, or you don't like guns or you like guns, it's looking at your capability, looking at common types of attack to start with, and go, would I know what to do here? And when I use that example of the firearms to the camera, I went, okay, shots go off, I've got guns, and I go, shit. And I flinched towards the camera, and I asked the audience, I go, anyone see a gun in my hand right now? So unless your gun is duct taped in your hand, it's nowhere near you when you flinch. You need to clear the fear, reorganize the body, and then select the optimum strategy, which may or may not be grabbing a gun. If you're here really fast, stick your finger in my face as if you're like a pointing. Do it again, but do it really fast. I flinch. If I've got a gun, keep it up there. So now a round just went off over here. Okay. If I flinch right here, which I did, deflected that, and now I reach for the gun and you're trying to kill me, well, look, what are you going to do when I pull up my shirt and grab my gun? Yeah. So I can show a ton of examples where going for your gun would be the most dangerous thing you could do in a certain type of fight. So it's but again, online, it's like, that's why I carry, that's why I carry. And the bottom line is, if you're not studying how to manage fear and how to convert the startle response, then you're missing a chunk of the education. And part of it also is we all have these erroneous beliefs. And I say erroneous because we go, size doesn't matter, or we buy off on, he who moves first. Well, why would I want, in an ambush, who moves first? Always in an ambush, the bad guy. Yeah. Well, if you have a belief system from years of martial arts or years of experts saying, if a guy gets the first shot off, usually wins. Well, if that's really deep in my psyche, and you swing first, or you stab first, or you shoot first, is part of my unconscious nervous system going, oh, fuck. So I like to tell people, the bad guy always moves first, and action's faster than reaction. True. That's physics. Yeah. Well, if action's faster than reaction, then how do you compete with the bad guy who's action? So you need a system that's faster, and that's non-conscious movement, startle flinch. Okay. But we're down a million rabbit holes. But I think it's an interesting thing. You've got to accept who you are. Look, I'm 5'2", I'm 5'7". I have no training. I got training. But if something kicked off now, what I just posted this morning on my Instagram page, or was that there's a special type of anger that all of us can access, and it's free, and it's called indignation. It's the anger we all felt after 9/11. Right. It's like a how dare you. And if you can tap into that indignation button, all of us have the switch in it, but it'll turn you into something different emotionally, psychologically. And because the mind navigates the body, that's where you need to start.
So Tony, let's talk self-defense, and what's the best way for somebody to prepare themselves to defend themselves?
This is controversial, and it's going to sound like, I'm going to do a disclaimer first, that I'm, I think the technical term would be poo-pooing on
very technical, yes,
on martial arts. But I say this, I'm 63. I've been a martial artist my whole life. I started training when I was 7 in wrestling.
Right on.
And so, like, I've been doing stuff for 5 decades, and everything that I do in life is because of my love of martial arts. But I discovered early on that technical martial arts, classical, traditional martial arts, combat sports don't prepare us for the violence we feel, experience, or see in the street. And I say it as a disclaimer because anybody who teaches a martial art will go, what did he just say? Who is this guy? How dare he? And so if you're out there and you're listening and you study martial arts, what I'm about to share is about amplifying and augmenting the toolbox that you've developed and are developing. So martial arts are like a toolbox. And if I give you, we go to the hardware store and I buy you a toolbox and I give it to you, you pick up the hammer, you go, and I go, let me see you use it. And you go like this, and you smash your hand, you go, ah. And I go, look, here's how you hold it. Here's how you swing it. There's some things to do. And I start teaching you how to use the hammer. I'm not teaching you how to build a house or demolish a house,
okay,
right? And so the metaphor here is, you got a handyman, you got a carpenter, and you're an architect. Let's assume that the architect was once a handyman. The handyman can fix a few problems. The carpenter can fix more, but the architect can go, I wouldn't build that there. Here's why. The foundation is going to shift. Or, yeah, we can fix this house, or I can build you a house. When you're learning self-defense, you want to be thinking and understanding things like an architect. You want to understand the blueprint of violence. You want to understand, what does a bad guy want? You want to then flip that and go, what happens to me as a human when I'm near violence? So when you go to martial arts school, they're not talking about situational awareness. They're not talking about the moral, ethical, legal responsibility of avoidance and de-escalation.
Okay.
They're not talking about multiple assailants or fear management or neurobiology. And these are things when you're, again, I want to be able to protect myself. If that's the hypothesis when you start, then if you went into, let's say you were an instructor to school, and I say, hey, I'm thinking of signing up my kids here. I want to learn for myself. Talk to me about the startle response and the neurobiology that triggers that. The guy's going to look at you and go, what are you talking about?
Yeah, crickets.
Oh yeah, or he's going to say, like, why do you want to know that? Like, let me show you how to punch. Let me show you how to block. Let me show you how to get out of a headlock. Let me show you to do a gun disarm. Well, in the truest sense, we have the detect, diffuse, defend, what we call in our system the 3 Ds: detect and avoid. That's all your situational awareness skills. Okay. Defuse, D-E-F-U-S-E, meaning to take the fuse out. You're angry. Do I fan the flames? Do I say something that makes you freak and escalate things? Or am I calming, quelling, and de-escalating? And then D3 is defend. If push comes to shove, how do you defend yourself? How do you be your own bodyguard? So when somebody asks me, and you opened up a mini can of worms or Pandora's box, whichever, yeah, or both, because I've been studying violence, fear, and aggression for 43 years. You know this, but most of you don't know this. If you research me, my audience are tier 1 operators, SWAT teams, police, public safety professionals, hospital workers. And they bring us in because the toolbox isn't working. They get to a point where they realize the fear was overwhelming. We were mobilized by fear. We didn't know what to do here. Or the violence was so fast and so sudden, we were, in this position, and before we could recover, things were done. And so our system is almost like connective tissue or fascia in your body, where if I remove the fascia, you would fall, right, because your ligaments, tendons, muscles, and bones there's nothing holding them together. Yeah. So that's what we do for other martial arts systems. And I'm debating whether to say this, but I'll throw it in here. We've got affiliates around the world, hundreds of them, And the reason I mention that is none of them just started with me. They're all Thai boxer, Krav Maga, Kaja Kempo, people who got really good at the tools, really good at the sparring, really good at the mechanics, and realized their system was missing D1, D2, that was missing understanding and how to evaluate scenarios. I mean, the final training exercise, if you were my student, would be me to put you in scenarios that you're concerned about and have you stress inoculate by going through these scenarios. So the scenario would be like a controlled force on force experience where it elevated your heart rate. It made the walls do this. You got a little tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't even do so well. This is very subtle in our scenarios. And I figured this out early in the 80s, is we would do scenarios, Chris, where we did one where you screwed up everything.
Okay.
We would we would find surveillance video, dashboard video, body cam of somebody failing, getting injured, maimed, or killed. And we go, we're going to do that. And I want you to play the role of the officer who just got dropped, or the homeowner that, didn't do well, or the woman who didn't do well. And we would do a bunch of reps like that. And I would do it without explaining why we're doing it. And people would, eventually someone puts their hand up and goes, yeah, hey, Mr. Blauer, why the hell are we practicing getting knocked out or getting stabbed? And I said, what does it feel like when you're doing this? What are you thinking? And it was very emotional. And so when you only practice like the touchdown,
okay,
you don't ever experience any emotional, psychological adversity. This is going to be scary if this happens. So we're going to do some reps of what did it feel like for the victim. And I want you to try and internalize that, because this is the penalty of inaction. INACTION, inaction means I did nothing. I was emotionally, psychologically paralyzed with fear.
Fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
Condition black.
But the problem with fight or flight and freeze is there's the theoretical option that you did flee, that you did fight. Yeah. The freeze part, we don't want. There are people who flail and they don't do well, but that's a whole other conversation. The penalty of inaction, spelled NIACTION, inaction means to do nothing.
Right.
But if I slip a hyphen in the word inaction after IN, it means I'm in action.
Okay. And
so we teach a model here, and it's done through the fear management, the startle flinch response. So what we've blended is we look at neurobiology that says when a fear spike happens, our brain is hijacked with, oh shit, I don't believe this is happening to me. So we go into denial. We start visualizing bad shit. Our body also, because of the fear, does a startle response, which hijacks executive function, which means I bypass my cognitive brain and my primal self is doing this, covering my head, turning away, and or pushing out danger together. You need to weaponize that. This is like a biological airbag. It's the fastest thing you can do. I love this. Everyone watching this, I'm going to ask Chris a question, but the question goes to you. How many times have you flinched in your life?
Countless.
Right. How many times when you flinched, did you say just before the flinch, oh, I should flinch?
Never.
Never. And same for all of you. It could be a snake, a spider, a bumblebee, somebody who sneaks up behind you and goes, hey, Tony, oh, dude, don't sneak up on me.
Right.
We never have ever thought to flinch. So flinching happens at a non-conscious level when your situational awareness has been compromised. And this is the magic of our system: SPEAR, spontaneous protection, enabling accelerated response. We're weaponizing the startle flinch. If we say head on a swivel, situational awareness is everything, like awareness is the currency that buys you time, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But if that was always true, then no one would ever be surprised. You would never be sucker punched. You'd never lose your gun. You'd never be kidnapped. If we just said head on a swivel, that's not enough.
Yeah.
Bad guys sneak up. We're distracted. If I'm here like this and I go, hang on, Chris, don't punch me in the face. I just got to answer this. Right? Like while I'm looking at my phone, boom, you nail me. Right?
Yeah.
So if I'm the sentry, I'm the bodyguard. I'm the executive protection detail of, the family, as my friend Pat McNamara likes to say.
Okay.
And I go, situationally, when's my shift over? Like I looked at my watch, compromised.
Yeah.
I go, okay, man, you're replacing me. I got to go to the can. We're both compromised right there. Right. So I remember watching a video of a politician in Europe get a pie in the face, and his detail from so many years on the road with this guy, his team leader had documents in his right hand. And when you flinch, your cross-eccentric chain, the cross-eccentric chain contracts. So if your hands are free, you'll do this. But if I'm on my phone, when I flinch, I'll do this. My hands won't drop the phone and my hands won't come up.
Okay.
So if you're a cop with a flashlight ID and and you go for my gun right now or hit me in the face, I'm doing this. The body's cross-eccentric chain locks down on whatever you're holding. So here's this bodyguard, slow motion in the news, doing this. He's trying to get his gun out, but he's got some papers. He made the mistake of putting his documents in his shooting hand instead of his free hand, but didn't understand startle flinch.
Wow.
Because if you understood startle flinch, you would have the documents in your left hand if you had to carry them, or you'd have your hands free.
Right.
There's an expression, don't never compromise your hands, right? So, I've literally seen bodyguards outside, and I got in an elevator years ago with, in the winter, New York, Mel Gibson gets in.
Okay.
And it was at the height of his Lethal Weapon.
Yeah.
And it's in this like boutique hotel I was staying at, and his bodyguard gets in, and they're cold, and they both have their hands in their jackets. And I push the button. They push the button. I said, hey, is it cool if I recognize you? Because it's a discreet hotel. He said, yeah. I said, a big fan. But I wanted to say to his bodyguard, you're both fucking dead. Get your fucking hands into your pockets. And he might say, well, I had a stub nose. No, you didn't. Like your hands are in your pockets because it was cold. It was winter.
Right. Right.
So anyways, I'm all over the place here. We need, everything I described was about the map and understanding the timeline of violence. Because when you understand the 30,000 foot view, you go, I'm good over here. I can get out of a headlock, but I don't know how to de-escalate. And I really don't know a lot about situational awareness. And I don't know anything about multiple assailants. And I don't know anything about, evasion and vehicle carjacking. Because what all martial arts teach are, throw a punch, here's a block, throw a kick, here's this, oh, let's get on the ground, let's do that. And these are useful skills. But to me, they're very much like, I bought you the toolkit, and then all we're doing is like hammering, and, we're just in wood, like hammering, sawing, screwing things in, and we're working right here, but we don't understand the lay of the land and where we want the house, if that metaphor makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, as you're saying this, I'm thinking to myself that probably one of the first things that you ever said that resonated with me, just because I've been in plenty of bar fights, is that if somebody makes a fist, you're now ready to get hit.
Right.
And I can't remember what the context was, but you were telling somebody, we're close quarters here. I'm attacking you, or you're attacking me, I should say. Instead of making a fist, and now they know that, you're going to unload on them, open hand them quickly, right, because you're not giving them that cue that you're fixing to smack them. So
in our program, so we look at it, again, everything we look at as, I teach self-defense to good humans, right? And so I go, avoid it, and if you can't avoid it, de-escalate it. And if you want to de-escalate it, you want body language that's congruent with the de-escalation. So one of the things we did, this going back in the 80s.
That's an interesting point, yeah.
So in the 80s we started with now it's like the last 3 years, certainly for our public safety, everything's de-escalate. And we've been doing this for 30 years, recognizing that if I'm posturing, so the average guy will do this. We get in a heated argument and I go, look, man, and I'll blade and I'll have a finger up and I might even have a loose fist here. Go, don't make me hit you, is the body language.
Right.
I don't want to fight. Well, if you don't want to fight, why are you in a fighting stance? So we created what we call nonviolent postures, which are a Trojan horse metaphor. And I just want to do something here because I had guys, just so you know, this is not rehearsed. And and I had an alarm so I don't miss my clock. And it's going to go off in 2 minutes.
So this would be the opportune time.
Right, this would be, but I'm ready to block you.
Yeah.
Or I'm ready to nail you. I'm watching you carefully. There it is. I forget what I was talking about, the story.
Well, it's posture.
Yeah, nonviolent posture.
Not giving that cue.
So Trojan horse. So our classic one is what we call the negotiator stance. Hey man, I want trouble, take it easy. Because this is universal for whoa, whoa, whoa. And this could be, I don't know how to fight. This could be slow down. This could be stay calm. Without me never tell another man to relax unless you're his chiropractor, right? And or massage therapist, right? But otherwise, don't tell me to relax, man.
Yeah.
So nonviolent postures are fighting stances that are Trojan horses. They don't look like fighting stances. So from here, I can startle, flinch, and protect myself, but I can also palm strike, stick a finger in your eye, fire a forearm, drop an elbow if we get closer. So it's a whole different way. But we've looked at the science of self-defense must blend psychology, fear management, neurobiology, neuroscience, and kinesiology. We got to understand how we move as, I like to refer to us as human weapons. But if you've, outsourced your safety for a long time, or you think that my martial arts are going to do this for me, it's the same thing as you said, I don't know if it was in this talk or another talk, where you think your gun is going to take care of it.
Right. False sense of security.
Yeah, I know I've kind of gone down 100 rabbit holes because I want people to understand that, you're a human weapon, you're a human weapon, I'm a human weapon. But if you don't understand how we move near violence, fear, and aggression, then you're going to make it more problematic if you need to defend yourself. So true self-defense, like managing sudden violence, is different than managing violence is coming.
Right.
And that's we call that ACP, awareness, consent, preparation.
Okay.
And that's everything. So a lot of people think, if you love jiu-jitsu, and I love jiu-jitsu, and I'm friends with some of the best in the world, but if you think that solving every fight on the ground, choking somebody out is the answer, then you haven't looked at how real violence happens with, mobs, multiple assailants on concrete, and so on and so forth. If you think striking somebody in boxing is always the answer, or kick, what I'm asking people to do is look at the news in your area, look at scenarios where things happen, ATM, hiking on a trail, going for a run, carjacking, gas stations, and look at the type of violence, and then ask yourself, does my jiu-jitsu, boxing, Krav Maga solve that? And again, I'm not knocking the arts. They're the tools.
Yeah.
You need to manage the fear, weather the ambush, then recalibrate, and maybe then you pull out a tool and you hit someone with a hammer because they're the nail. But the most important thing in true self-defense is the D1, D2, the detect and avoid and diffuse and de-escalate. And that's really like the most important part of our system. The physical stuff is sexy and it's cool and people want to learn it all the time, but I'm going, like, don't you want to know how to never be near a situation where you might have to defend yourself?
Yeah.
Isn't that, if you're a good human, isn't that what you want? Keep that shit away from me. And that's our approach.
Yeah. We've said this before, the best fight is the fight that doesn't happen.
Exactly.
Just because it's the least risky, right?
Yep.
Yeah. But we're going to have internet commandos down there, that'll disagree at length with that.
Yeah.
And say that you should go all John Rambo and deal with the consequences.
But you can't, in a litigious world, in a woke society, like, you can't risk, everyone's filming and things are going to be edited and doctored, and the 5 minutes where the guy said, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you, then they show you stomping on his head. You just can't go Rambo these days. And you never could if you're a good human. Like, why would you want to do that? Listen, what you said is great. Like, don't be there if you can avoid it.
Yeah.
But there are situations where you can't avoid.
That's right.
It just happens to you.
Yeah.
I will say this, and I love, the expression, the pen is mightier than the sword.
Mm-hmm.
So for anyone listening and selectively listening, going, is he just saying all talking and avoidance? No, I train. I've been training for decades now. And I prepare for violence because I abhor violence. I learn about fear because I don't like being afraid. It gives me those additional esoteric tools that I know are where we're hit first. And so the pen is mightier than the sword metaphor, I took some poetic license and I rewrote it. The pen is mightier than the sword when you know how to use a sword. So I can be, in the words of the immortal Patrick Swayze from Roadhouse,
Okay.
you know, you can be nice until it's time to not be nice.
Right.
If you know how to protect yourself.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be cavalier. Oh, that's what I carry. That's got a knife, or I'm a black belt. You need to be asking yourself, do I understand the legal, ethical, moral elements of what's going on here? Should I really pull out my gun? Should I hit the person? Should I just not do anything at all? And these are Socratic questions that you want to ask way in advance of an altercation. And so that's the homework for everybody, is look at what's going on and ask yourself. This is an exercise we do in our tactical garage gym, right? So like every week we take a video online. It could be a murder, an abduction, active shooting, a riot, and we analyze it and we ask the questions, and everyone's like breakout sessions online. And the job here is to improve your mind speed, because the mind navigates the body, right? Muscles don't have memory. It's a neural pattern you create, but you can't create a neural pattern if you don't have a scenario to attach it to.
Right.
Just don't randomly do stuff. So that's what you want. You want to look at a scenario, and this is the exercise I've all my students do. Look at an event in the news, and if you go, like if I show you this is really funny, a cop. We got a lot of cops on our Zoom calls. So this guy Dave, cop in Indiana, he goes, I go, Dave, I'm glad you logged in. He says, yeah, I got a flat tire. I go, how did you feel changing your flat tire? And he made a joke, because I talk about this all the time. He goes, I was so excited to change the flat tire because it gave me another changing a flat tire rep. Because what I talk about is when something happens that you didn't anticipate, you always go into denial first. You get a flat tire and you go, I don't fucking believe I got a flat tire.
Yeah.
And then you slam the door and then you stare at the tire. God damn it. Well, we do that with violence. I don't believe I'm being followed. I don't believe this happened to me. Oh shit, I can't believe I didn't bring my gun tonight. Holy, like we start going into denial. So you got to clear the fear and clear the mindset first. But so if I showed you, you know how to change a flat?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I said, hey, here's a guy getting a flat tire, what would you do? You go, well, I get out of the car, I open the trunk, I change the flat tire. But there are people out here listening, probably not in your network, but there are people who have zero idea how to change a flat tire.
Right.
Like I guarantee, and this is embarrassing to say, that my daughters don't know how to change a flat tire. That's my fault, right? I should, but if I said, hey, how do you change a flat tire? They go, I could figure it out. They're smart, but they've never done a dry run.
Gotcha.
And that's what you want to do at self-defense, is like, I don't want to be sitting there going, what should I do here?
Yeah.
And that's mind speed.
And that's awesome. So Tony, where can our viewers find you online?
Survival Dispatch.
Well, yeah,
besides
that's a given.
I mean, if you Google me, I'm of course shadow banned on a lot of places. So you might have to punch in my whole name, but it's just
welcome to the party.
Yeah, right. My main website where you can see everything we do is blauertrainingsystems.com. My last name Blauer, Blauer, trainingsystems.com, and I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and all that stuff. And that main site will take you to. We've got training for our military and law enforcement. We've got a program called Bureau and Bodyguard, which is it's self-defense taught with the same efficiency of learning first aid, which is an interesting thing. Because when we put together this one-day course called Bureau and Bodyguard, people were like, you can't learn to defend yourself in a day. I said, you absolutely can. In the same way you can learn tactical first aid in a day. And you've got life-saving skills, tourniquet, CPR, but you're not a paramedic. You're not a doctor after a day. So for my martial arts people out there, you can learn basic self-defense and functional self-defense in a day, but you're not a martial artist.
Right.
Don't confuse the two.
Yeah.
People confuse technical with tactical all the time. If I said to you, if I gave a baseball bat to a baseball player and I said, hit me over the head, he might go, get in the stance, tap the bat, do this, like load it, because his neural patterns from being at bat for 10 years override that. That's being technical. But if you weren't a baseball player, you would just go whack and you'd hit me way faster because you were tactical with the bat.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, douchebags in gunfights shoot like this, and very often cops lose gunfights and they shoot less accurately. Well, the cop is going, don't miss, and he's going through the neural patterns of the flat range.
Yeah.
Where the gangbanger is going bang, 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 and he's shooting and he's putting rounds on target, but he's being tactical. He's not being technical.
Gotcha.
And we got to find an intersection. So I don't want to, I'll start a whole other video now, but we're wrapping up.
All right.
Find me online and come to a course.
We'll have a bunch of links down below. I can highly recommend the human weapon system. I think that's like the coup de grace, the, you know,
I will if I
piece de resistance, whatever you want to call it.
If we were French, we'd say pièce de résistance. But
all right, well, I screwed it up a little bit.
We'll have subtitles.
I'm not
when
French.
I said that. Can I take a minute to talk about the human?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I spent 40 years studying violence, fear, and aggression. I spent a year putting together a program so that it's almost like train at home. Like you booked me for a private lesson, and it's filmed first person like this. Like you paid me, you know, money, said, hey, teach me the 10 most important things I need to know to make myself or my family safe. So it's 10 lessons. Each lesson has a written chapter, because the ways adult learn is like listen, watch, do, read, all of those components of adult learning. It's like 80-page book on the SPEAR system, and all these classes that are the most essential elements: de-escalation, nonviolent postures, understanding the neurobiology, the startle flinch, some tactical fitness tips, simple things that, and it's designed so that you can do it at home in your garage or room on any device. And we're excited to partner with you guys and make it available to your people. But I would tell everyone to start there, because it's truly, I make this joke. If I said, hey, brand new Glock for $397, would you buy that?
No, but it's a good price.
Because you have fancy guns that are all like...
I have no guns.
Right? You have no guns.
I have no guns. But I lost them all in the boating accident.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I
heard about
did.
that.
Yeah, it was a tragic situation.
I heard about those. A lot of people lost them in boating accidents.
It's a thing, you know.
But if I said to somebody, would you buy a brand new gun for $397? They might go, yeah, I'm not even going to tell my wife about that, right? I'm going to get that, right? And I'm glad you laughed. But like, that's the cost of the course for your members.
Yeah.
But people will go, oh, should I get that? This is the stuff that will help you weather the ambush. So if you needed your gun, you can get to it.
Yeah, I think the way I would frame this is that it's a force multiplier. So essentially, you have a choice. Let's say you put 20 guns in your safe. And instead of putting 20 guns in your safe, maybe you put 3 or 4 guns in your safe. And you take the money that you were going to spend on the other 16 or 17 guns
that you can't hold in the gunfight.
Correct.
Right.
Spend it on training, sending rounds downrange, training where you can, pull from a concealed carry, pull from a holster, spend it on night optics, spend it on body panels, those sorts of things. Instead of having 20 guns in your safe, the 3 or 4 guns that you have with all the force multipliers, you're 10 times more likely to be able to defend yourself. And
I would add to that, and I think we've gone over this and I emphasized it enough, is you need to be the human weapon.
Right.
And that weapon, literally, like the old Marine Corps adage, it needs to be an extension of your body. You need to understand, hey, I coined a principle called the naked warrior principle years ago. And it was basically this idea that I don't need body armor, guns, or clothes. I'll fight you nude, right? And it was a drill no one wanted to do. I understand.
Sounds like a great reality TV show,
right?
Naked and Dangerous. The naked. Like yeah.
But the naked warrior idea is like, I'm a human weapon. If I got to protect myself or my family, I'm going to go. And there's a lot of people watching this that aren't in good shape or aging athletes. We've got injuries.
Mm-hmm.
So you want a system that's based on your body, how your body moves, how your mind moves. And that's why I say start with the human weapon system. I've had people in my class in wheelchairs. I had this guy, Kyle Maynard, go Google him, born with no arms and no legs.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah, like, so when you go, I'm out of shape, or how long will it take me, you don't need to get in shape to defend yourself. A real fight is 20 seconds long. Yeah. Everyone has the aerobic capacity to last 20 seconds.
I just had this conversation firsthand, like face to face with a customer this week, and they were diabetic and, they weren't in the best shape and all those sort of things. And he said to me, I know if the shit hits the fan, I'll be one of the first ones to go. And we got on the topic of dry fire training, the run and gun training that we do and whatnot. And he said, well, you know, you belong in that conversation. I don't belong in that conversation. Right. And I said, well, I disagree. You know, so you don't have to do all the heavy duty training. If you had like a Mantis Blackbeard X and you trained with your AR, shoot a few shots, walk 10 feet. You can take a knee, right? Shoot a few shots, walk 10 feet, go in a prone position, lie down, shoot a few shots. If you do that for 30 days, then there'll be no challenge to it. So now you can go to the next level of, okay, well, go here and shoot, go here and shoot, go here and shoot, do 5 push-ups. Walk back to the beginning, do it again, do 5 push-ups. A month later, you're doing 10, 15 push-ups. A month after that, you're doing 10, 15 push-ups, plus maybe some other exercises mixed in with it. And before you know it, at 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road, you're not the same guy who started
100%
all that time beforehand. And I think you mentioned already, which is a great thing that people should really focus on, stress inoculation. So Mike Glover the other day, he was on, one of our shows with our guys, and he said, if you think you're going to shoot accurately when your heart rate's 140, 150 beats per minute, and you haven't trained at that level, you're going to miss people at point blank range. So slowly working into these sort of things, if you truly are the defender of yourself and your family and your home, you can do this in incremental steps, but like you said, reps.
Yeah.
When you've done it over and over again, you don't have to stop and think. Your body just reacts. You're pre-programmed, call it whatever you want, sort of thing, second nature sort of thing. You're a dangerous weapon system at that point, right?
You just made me think of we have a program called BTS 90, and it BTS, Blauer Tactical Systems, but the BTS acronym for BTS 90 is Built to Survive. And it's a program, it's a 90-day program, and it blends our no fear spear system training. So this might be an interesting thing for you guys to look at. We run them every 3 months, and it's daily connection. We have an app, daily connection with me once a week. There's a talk, like check-in, kind of an AMA where I'm guiding people. And each week I'm giving you little micro doses of tactical tips and things to do so that it's kind of a compound interest. I call them tactical snacks.
Yeah.
Compound interest, where if I said to you, every hour put $1 in the bank, you go, what's the point of that? Well, if you did that for a long time, you'd have a lot of money in the bank with the compound interest. So a lot of people do is say, I can't work out for 90 minutes. Well, I don't have time to work out for 90 minutes anymore. What I do are these tactical snacks throughout the day. I'm waiting for the elevator. I do a couple of tactical squats. I'm waiting for a phone call. You're throwing them in, and we teach these routines. They're just insane. But you guys out there, that might be a good place to start. And I'd like to have that up with access to your group.
The comment I would make on that is that it's a process, not an event.
Right.
So it's not something where you just swipe your credit card or, you do one thing and all of a sudden
you commit to the 90 days. And what happens is in 90 days, it will, if you follow the guidance, and if you go, how much, I don't have extra time, how much, it's cumulatively, it's like 90 minutes in the day, but it's 2 minutes here, 5 minutes here, 6 minutes here, 8 minutes here. And what starts to happen, you made me think about it when you were describing, hey, do 5 push-ups here, then do 10 a month later.
It adds up.
Yeah, but at the end of the 90 days, this becomes what your body wants to do. You've developed the habit. A lot of people confuse motivation and discipline.
Right.
And there's a lot of times you're not motivated to do anything. You just need to be disciplined to do it. And this will help develop that.
Well, and we could go really deep on this, but my final thought on this is that when you follow a system like that, the BTS 90, your body releases endorphins. And endorphins are just as addictive as drugs like cocaine and whatnot. So essentially what you find after about 90 days of doing anything that causes an endorphin release, your body craves it. It's got to do it, sort of thing. So it's no longer work. It's now something that your body gets this hit and is like, man, I want to do this because I feel better after.
You will get to the point where it's become so good for you and your body and your mind that if you take off a couple of days, you're like, I got to go. I want to go work out. I want to move.
100%.
And that's what starts to happen. So,
all right, Tony.
Thank you, buddy.
Appreciate your time.
Yep.
Safe travels back to the left coast.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Do push-ups.
Push-ups.
Every chance you've got.
You're about to get in a fight. Hold on a sec.
Interrupt their OODA loop. Time out. Push-ups first.
Right.